There we go, and we are live, back in action. Hey, everybody, what's going on? Chris and Amanda here for Chris and Amanda Worldwide Lifestyle and our Chris and Amanda chats. And today, what are we going to talk about, babe? Anxiety?
Kidding.
Are you getting anxiety from me saying anxiety?
Anxiety.
Yes, we are talking about anxiety. Anxiety is the reason why we want to really talk about anxiety is a lot of people, when they hear the word, they assume somebody that has some kind of mental health issue that needs to be treated by medication. And while there are definitely certain anxiety disorders that should be treated with medication, there are also a lot of other anxieties that we have that are treated by holistic or natural remedies or by things that we can try. And I think we just all need to understand and have a conversation on what anxiety actually is and how it's created, why it's also can be good and also can be used as a superpower, and other ways to naturally and healthfully. Yeah, that's a new word. It's created.
Yeah. Well, I guess most anxiety comes from future thinking. So it's not present in the moment. It's future thinking. So that's what causes most anxiety.
So one of the things that we definitely want to address with anxiety is what actual stressors there are, right? So we have family. That's a big one, right? A lot of people have anxiety around family type circumstances, right? Because we're not setting healthy boundaries. Our lack of communication or our communication styles are not loving enough, possibly.
Yeah. Just having no confidence also in a relationship to have a voice to speak up. So, because everyone needs to be seen, heard, and appreciated and valued. So it's very hard if there's no communication to really have that communication where it's open.
Yes.
It's very closed.
And when we have that, then we don't trust ourselves and the things that we're getting, and we don't trust other people, and that creates a lot of other things. Which next thing I want to get to is with finances, right? I know for us, finances can be a big point of stress. And the thing is that it's, once again, it's fear of future, right? It's not like we don't have money to buy food or a place to stay or to live, to, clothes, like all the things that we need, we have. But, that's one of the things that, I think all of us get in this whole mindset. We play the comparison game and we say, well, they have all this stuff. How come I don't have all this stuff? Or I want that and we don't have that. So that means that we're failing in this, and the other things, that we talk about are health, right? A lot of us have a lot of anxiety over body image. We have anxiety over not being healthy enough or wanting to be healthier, or the food choices that we make. We get anxiety over that, right? Like, so literally you can come up with numerous different things. But I think the biggest ones that really affect us negatively, and you tell me what you think about this, babe, is the lack of spiritual connection that we have.
Yeah. Well, I think it happens when we get so busy. Yeah. So when we get so busy, then we lose a sense of us as an individual because, maybe we're trying to please everyone else or accommodate everyone else. And therefore, it's very easy to fall off the bandwagon with own practices or own things that make you feel good. So then you start feeling this like anxiety when you know something's not right.
Yeah.
So I think
codependency.
And being aware of when those feelings come up as well, not just be like, oh, it's right.
Yeah.
Being like, hey, what's actually going on underneath that?
And I think COVID has really increased the level of anxiety everywhere. It has terrified people in all over the world, right? And it's also put us in this isolation chambers to where we started to be in our own heads too much, which created more anxiety. So now, even though we had a lot of anxiety pre-COVID, I think post-COVID, we see a lot more anxiety, especially in youth. Yeah. Because, they were in their rooms on screens trying to, in a time when they needed to be around other human beings for emotional growth. And now we have children, teenagers, young adults that are 2 years behind in emotional growth. So they might have gone from 14 to 16 in physical, but they're still stuck at that 14-year-old level because they weren't around other kids and help them grow, right? Which we see it's so important, especially in the 4, 5, 6, 7, 8-year-old range as well, as we've talked about in our other videos.
And because of this, it's become the norm. So how do you
Yeah.
how do you go back to something when it's already been so open?
Yeah.
As in watching, like playing for hours on video games and stuff like that. Like they're used to that. So how do you actually revert back now?
Yeah.
When that's the norm.
And I think that's really why we always say we need to change the conversation. And especially with anxiety, there's a couple things that come up that are really key, that are very simple as well. One is having purpose. The number one thing, right, that makes people happy is when they have purpose. So it's like, in regards of, we talk about this, but purpose is a hard one for a lot of people because they feel like they don't have purpose unless they've mastered something. But that's not what purpose is. Purpose is the will to change things or to support something or to care about something. It's basically like passion, right? And a lot of times you'll hear some of the, the greatest speakers or personal development coaches, which what we do, right, is we say you take your pain, which becomes a passion, which becomes a purpose. Meaning that if you, like, let's say you come from, like, say you got hurt playing athletics. Let's just use that for an example. It's a relative one. In high school. And that took you out of, like, what your identity was. Maybe you were, like, the football player, and that was everything you were, and then all of a sudden you broke your leg, and now all of a sudden you're on the sidelines, and you're like, well, now I'm nobody, right? And that creates a lot of anxiety. But from that pain, then all of a sudden you go to your passion, right? And so maybe your passion was that you started to coach other people from the sidelines because you couldn't be in the game, and that gave you purpose. Follow me? Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So, so we invite you to look at, like, what are your passions, and also maybe focus more on your purpose. Because if you have a purpose, like, we know what our purpose is, right? Our purpose is to empower young men and women. Our purpose is to empower families. Our purpose is to support families, to help overcome challenges, to open communication, to raise self-esteem, all the things that we've worked on ourselves and overcome, and we are now pouring that into other people. That's our purpose. But it came from a lot of pain and from both of us having, a pretty tough life, in a lot of circumstances, right? Divorces, like low self-esteem, substance abuse for me, body image for you, like, so all the things, like, we've been through a lot of really, tough stuff, overcoming. And that's what gives us this purpose to pour into. And even though we still have some of that anxiety, right, like around maybe finance or other stuff, once you focus on the passion and the purpose, that the anxiety kind of melts away, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
And one of the things I think, I'll switch it over to you because I know you're really good at this part, but is like nature, meditation, grounding, things like that. So, like, what are some things, babe, that we can do to also help alleviate anxiety just in the natural?
Yeah. So if you feel that sense of that upset stomach or something like that, it's, nature is our best medicine. Being outside and just being under a tree or touching a tree or putting your bare feet on earth.
That's a big one, right? Bare feet in the grass or on the sand.
Yeah. All these things really help ground back down, because when we're thinking too far ahead, thinking future, we're not actually present in the now.
Yeah.
And so if we can ground ourselves to even take a few breaths, but being in nature is really helpful. And that's why we have it. It's beautiful. So to be present, be in nature, or just going for a walk, and that could be by the water, or it could be in a rainforest. Like, anything around nature is really, really grounding.
I think even if you live in the city, right? Like, just getting outside and taking a walk at certain times, sunset, or there's maybe a sunrise before it gets all crazy or after it's died down, right?
Yeah. Just
gratitude.
Yeah.
Probably point number 2, right?
Yeah.
Instead of looking at the things that we don't have, we look at the things that we do have.
Yeah. And then just understanding what makes you feel good. So if that's
write out a list.
If
right?
that's going to a spa, if that's getting your nails done,
playing basketball, skateboarding.
You just, I think, first it's understanding or knowing what you like, to then be able to follow that up and actually go and do those things, because that will make you feel good.
Yeah. And this ties back to what you were talking about earlier, babe. It was like where We start to people please other people and get all this anxiety, and then we forget what makes us happy, right? So it's like we want to bring that back in to see like, what do you like? If you like to bake, you know, pastries, or if you like to cook food, go back in the kitchen and do that. That's a way to, release anxiety, right? And it doesn't matter. Like, the things we really want to make key here is that all the things that we're providing aren't rocket science. They're simple. And we do that for a reason, because too many other people come at you with these diagnoses and with all this stuff out of a textbook, and you're like, I don't even know what that means. That's the difference between that kind of talk, which we feel is kind of ineffective, and what we do is that we want to give you simple answers, and they don't have to be crazy, and you don't have to pay thousands of dollars. You have to jump off of an airplane or out of an airplane, or anything like that. It's like, seriously, just get back to who you are and get that grounding, and then we can build from there, right? Because right now we're not trying to eradicate anxiety, we're trying to deal with it, right? Because some anxiety is actually good, right? If you're getting ready to take a test, you want some anxiety, so you will actually study harder because you're like, oh, I don't want to mess this up, right? And you want to do that. Same thing when we're coming up with like a program or container, like we're a little bit anxious because like, how should we say this? How can we bring it together so everybody can understand and really relate to it, right?
Yeah.
And that's a good anxiety, right? If we just did it without anxiety, oh, we'll just write this down, that wouldn't be impactful for you or for us.
Yeah, true.
Right?
Yeah.
So I think that's key. So just a little recap. One of the things, anxiety. When you start to feel anxious, when you start to have these crazy thoughts or overwhelmed or things like that, like what Amanda said, like stop and maybe take a few breaths, and do emotional check-ins throughout the day if you're really having a tough time with anxiety, right? Maybe at like 10 a.m., go, hey, what do I need? Because a lot of the times, things that we need for anxiety are a glass of water, right? Some extra water maybe, or maybe we're hungry. That's another big one, right? Maybe so eat a banana or granola bar or something, to tide you over. If you're not getting good sleep, that can be another one for anxiety, right? Because you're out of whack. Right?
Too much caffeine.
Too much caffeine. And also to see, are you isolating? That's a big one, right? If you have a lot of anxiety, maybe it's because you're not talking with friends or family enough, or you're not really, talking with anybody, and you're sitting there with your own thoughts and you're making yourself crazy, literally, right? And that's what we went back to, like with COVID. A lot of people really went crazy with that because they were sitting by themselves and they had nobody to talk to, so they started actually making their false, what's that, false evidence appearing real, fear, right?
Yeah.
Things come true. So great. Purpose, big one, right? And what do you think in the passion and the purpose and the pain? Give us some of that Amanda wisdom for teens that are watching this, right? Because I feel like that's where a lot of anxiety is, and you specialize in this.
Yeah, I just understanding who we are and being able to be okay on our own is probably a big one. Like we don't also necessarily need to be around people, like as in the isolation thing. Being okay with being alone is also a good thing.
Very true.
Because later on, like if it plays out, you may not be, you might get anxiety from not being around people.
Yeah.
And then, so it's very hard for you to be alone, which then also plays out in your relationships and becomes codependent. So being okay with being alone, knowing what you like, that's the main thing. It's knowing what you like.
You think you should like write out lists?
Yeah.
What's the best way to do that, you think?
Yeah, just think back of even childhood. What were the things that you really loved doing when you were a child? Like bring back some more child play.
Yeah, because you gotta have some fun, right?
Yeah.
You love to have fun, right? That's
jumping on the trampoline, like swinging on swings.
Yeah.
All that stuff that we used to do that you kind of forget about, and you like do it, and you're like, yeah, this is fun.
Yeah.
Why are we not doing this?
Go Peter Pan on them. You know what I mean? Go back to Neverland.
Yeah.
Be a kid.
Yeah. So more fun, more play, and getting outside in nature, and you don't even have to exercise. Just go and sit outside on a park bench. Just go and be with your thoughts, not on a phone. Just go and be with your thoughts.
Yes. That's a big one, right? Quality time by yourself does not mean watching TV or playing on your phone. It means actually sitting outside in the sun or
in the beautiful rain.
yeah. For us, we're sitting outside, and yes, as you can see, we are in tropical conditions today, and we love it. Okay, great. Well, listen, we hope you've enjoyed the show. We hope we've given you a few simple to easy to use ways to deal with anxiety. As always, please, any comments or questions, feel free to put those down below. Please subscribe to our YouTube channel and also follow us at Chris Amanda Worldwide Lifestyle on YouTube and Instagram. As always, we thank you for all your love and support for all of our shows and videos. Sending out big love to you all. And anything we can do for you, always please remember, we are always here for you and promise to respond to every single email, letter, or comment that we get. Cheers.
Cheers.
All right, there we go.